So focus on the plan, not the problem. Be a solution-based realtor, right? So, you know, when Bernice was talking about, you know, being blessed to be 50, that's a mindset thing, right? So, you know, in order to be a solution-based realtor, one would need to have a positive mindset, in my opinion, because if not, you're not going to focus on the plan, not the problem. Does that make sense? So let's talk about that. What does that mean to you, like being solution-based? Or give me an example of when you were solution-based or when you wish you were solution-based.
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is when, let's just say we're talking, because this can go across all areas of life, right? But, you know, even just thinking about professional, you know, what we do every day as professionals, when something goes south or when something pops up out of the blue, oftentimes what I think the first time when I hear about someone attacking a person, let's say, and not so much the problem or the process, I think that is someone who that's a red flag that we're focusing on, you know, not being you know, a problem solver here, right? We can't attack people, we have to attack problems, and the only way that we can do that is by creating the plan and the process, right? And that's what's going to help you avoid these fires that come up oftentimes, you know, unexpectedly.
What else?
Something that comes to mind is from my past life. When I worked in telecommunications, I had a situation with a client, and I was kind of struggling on how to manage the problem. So I went to my district manager, went into his office, hey, Michael, I got a situation here. I need some help. And I'll never forget this. He said, look, I'm glad to help you, but when you come to me with these types of problems, bring a solution along with it, and then we can discuss it. So that's something I've kind of taught my son as well. Like, you know, problems going to happen. So don't expect somebody else to just plop it in their lap and fix the problem. You know, come up with a solution.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, because it's one thing to go running around with all these problems and expecting someone else to deal with it, right?
Right.
But, okay, well, what do you want me to do about it? How can we fix it, you know? And being part of the solution instead of being more part of the problem.
Right.
And that's a great way to train somebody too on, you know, right off the bat on how to be, you know, a process-driven professional, right? I think that's a great way to train. That's the #1 way to train, I think. If you have somebody under you, somebody on your team, is asking them that same question. And sometimes it can kind of come off as condescending a little bit, right? But they have to know that this is, you know, this is how we're training, you know, and even if we don't use the 2 or 3 solutions that you brought to the table to help with this problem, you know, there's value in, you know, doing the research and getting there, training yourself on how to do that, you know?
Yeah. And I found too, you know, people have called, you know, me and left messages like, oh my God, this, that, and the other thing, or whatever the big issue is, you know, and if I can't answer the phone right then or have to call them back or whatever, I find that I get a text after that saying, oh, forget it, I figured it out, or it's all set, right? It's just our immediate reaction is just to call someone and have them deal with it instead of us just like taking a minute to think about it. Dennis is nodding his head, to think about it and say, okay, how can, like, let's just think about this here for a second. What makes sense? What should I do? You know? And again, like Bill said, come with kind of some solutions. Like, this is what happened. This is what I'm thinking. Like, am I on the right track here or what? Especially if it's a new agent, they don't really know like rules and, you know, law or whatever. That's fine. But come with something to just know that you're processing it and that you're trying to figure it out instead of just pushing it on somebody else.
One of the best advice I ever got, I got from Rick Murray. And it was, I think, in 2003 or so, or maybe 2004, when he and I first started working together. back in the old days before we were at KW. And the best piece of advice he ever gave me was, Miss, if you ride the emotional roller coaster with your clients, you are never going to survive. And I took it to heart, and I can't say I always followed that advice, but you really have to remain calm when things start to happen or go off track. That's the best thing you can do for not only yourself, but for your clients and the situation. Because if you appear as an alarmist, forget it. The whole thing is just going to go off track, because you're supposed to be in charge and everybody's just going to follow you down that black hole of doom. So don't do that. Just stay calm and think about, okay, well, what are the possible outcomes, or what are the possible options? This could happen, or this could happen. What's the best result for all parties? And usually that is find the way through to the finish line, even if it's not quite what everyone expected or hoped the finish line to look like. Just stay calm. I'd like to say I've seen everything. I certainly haven't. I've seen a lot, but I haven't seen everything when it relates to real estate. I learn new things every week, and it's important that you remain, calm and be the professional and be the guiding force. And if you don't have a solution or an answer, start asking questions, go to your colleagues, look for help. That's the best thing you can do. The second best piece of advice I ever got was from my coach years ago, who said, listen, you have to learn to adopt the "this sounds like a you problem" attitude, as opposed to, oh, this is my problem and now I have to do something about it.
Which, so there's a saying that Steve Zabosky says, and I love it. Let me see if I can now, in front of everybody, remember it. I know, now I have to think of how it goes. I'll think of it in a second, because now I feel like I'm under pressure. But back to what you were saying, Melissa, it kind of goes back to like keeping your emotions between the lines.
Yeah, you gotta stay
because
calm.
if you are like automatically freaking out and like stress ball everywhere, it's not going to solve anything. It's going to make things worse.
Right.
Worse. Especially, and I can say this because I'm a talker. Shocker. I know you're all shocked right now. I can see the look on your face. But I tend to talk a lot, and I've learned, like, right? See, Dennis, yeah. Oh my God. So, but sometimes I have to think, like, why am I talking? Like, stop telling them so much information. You can make it worse here by just talking. So, why use blah, blah, blah when blah will work? Right? Because if you're blah, blah, blahing, that's when it kind of gets out of control and you don't have your emotions in check. Right?
Yeah. People say that
piss poor planning on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on my part.
Yep.
Oof.
I've heard that one.
I know. Love it. I use it all the time. Although, I didn't.
Zebism.
Huh?
A zebism.
But it's true, because that's what happens. You know what I mean? Like, somebody comes with something. It's like, really? Now you're going to put that on me? This is now my problem. Like, and sometimes most of the time when that like comes into play is because they wait till the last minute to either do something, figure something out. You know what I mean? Things that they had time to deal with, but they didn't. And now it's someone else's emergency. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say, because you have a closing and you need a check, right? Oh my God, I need the commission check and I need the escrow check for the seller. Okay, but the office doesn't even know you had a closing because you didn't do your green sheet. Now that's putting that on the MCA now, when if you just did your job and did it the way it's supposed to be done by doing the green sheet when you do the purchase and sales, you could have avoided your aggravation and the MCA's aggravation, right? As an example. Anybody else have any other?
Just to, for the Norwell crew, I see some of my Norwell peeps here. We don't do green sheets.
We just talk about the brain
opportunities. We do something else. I just want to add some clarification.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. What else?
So my very first day of my real estate career, a woman whom I adore and just followed around like a puppy and learned so much from, she never called the buyer. If she was discussing something with the other side, she didn't use personal names because she felt like it would personalize whatever dilemma, whatever problem she was having. So it was always seller says or buyer says. It wasn't, you know, Bob and Betty and Sam and Susie. She was really trying to remove some of that personalization. It is a little hard to demonize seller without a name. So I don't know, I just found that really impactful.
So who was she talking to when she was saying the seller, the buyer?
It would be the co-broke.
Oh, yeah.
Not, listen, you know, Sam and Susie seller say that blah, blah, blah. It was a seller. She was very calm and very factual. But she was also very, you know, I think sometimes we end up emailing each other, copying and pasting, and, you know, she was always very careful to make sure that she wasn't sharing the email address of the other side. Because I know that we have all had situations where the client immediately emails the seller or the buyer, whatever side it is, and just fireworks start.
That's interesting. Does anybody, when they're talking to the co-broke, use their clients' names when they're talking to them? Yeah, I've not. When you just said that, I was like, people do that? Like, I don't even think to do something like that, because it's like, if I say, oh, Liam says, they're like, well, who's that? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like they wouldn't understand who I was talking about.
No, I've had it on the other side. I've had co-brokes talk to me about their buyers or sellers in their personal names.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, I know them because they're usually on the purchase and sale or on the check.
Right.
I don't reciprocate that. I always, like Donna said, I always keep it in the in the third party, because again, you can't. It's a lot harder to demonize or personalize, especially when you're talking about home inspections or whatever. You know, it makes it's actually great advice. And even if you hear it the other way around, if your co-broke does refer to Mr. and Mrs. Hana, then just don't take the bait. Don't take the bait and use your client's personal name. Just keep them as your client. I even do that. So my client says, my client this, my client that. That way I don't have to even put him and her. It's just my client.
Yeah.
I think too, you know, I think with that too, Dennis, I think you're cutting down on the opportunity to confuse people, because, or even just misunderstandings, because, you know, we have so many people involved in a transaction. And so what if there were two Dennises in a transaction, you know, and you're just used to habit saying, you know, Dennis said we need an extension, and, you know, maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was the attorney Dennis, or maybe it was the lender Dennis or something, you know what I mean? And I just think that you're opening yourself up to a misunderstanding that could really, you know, mess things up along the way too.
It's a great way to solve a problem.
There you go. Don't create the problem.
More Dennises. What we need in the world are more Dennises.
Request denied. Request denied.
What other like situations or examples do you have about you know, being part of the plan and not the problem? Like, what would be a good example?
I think that we've talked about this before, but the buddy sell, I think, is a technique that a lot of us use initially because it's the easiest thing to do. You know, we're going to meet somebody in an open house and we're really going to try to get along well with them and make them happy, you know, and that's the buddy sell, right? But I think that sets us up for failure because we're promising the world at the beginning. And then when something does come up, even if it's a little speed bump, not even a huge hurdle or a mountain to climb, you know, that could turn into, in the buyer's eyes or the seller's eyes, a big hurdle or a mountain to climb, you know, where if you're having that honest conversation at the beginning saying, hey, just like an airline at the beginning of your airline flight, you know, your pilot's going to tell you that you could experience some turbulence along the way. That doesn't mean you're going to crash and burn. You're going to land safely. The same thing applies to real estate. There's going to be some turbulence along the way. There always is. But just know that doesn't mean that we're going to crash and burn. We'll be just fine. We're going to land this plane safely. So that when something does come up that was unexpected, the buyers or the sellers expect it now. And you can, even if they didn't, you can always pull them back to, hey, remember when we spoke about the turbulence at the beginning of the transaction? That's all this is right now. Yeah, put your seatbelt on, but we'll be fine.
Wow.
You know,
That's a great analogy, Bob.
That is a great analogy, Bob. That's great.
But that's part of just having that plan. I think having a plan going into a transaction is so important. And if you don't, really all a process is, I think, is a habit, right? That most of the time is written down. So whether you have your process written down or not, honestly, it doesn't even matter. I just think that if you go through the same steps every single time with every single transaction, number one, it's going to put you in a much better position. And that's just having your plan. That's all that is. This is my plan. It's no different than every time, and I'm still going to use it because as far as I'm concerned, we don't have another quarterback, but every time Tom Brady is about to run a play, they have a quick huddle, right? And here's the play. They don't just kind of like set up at the line and everybody just go do what they're going to do. The running back doesn't know if we're running, and the receivers don't know what they're supposed to do. And I think the same thing applies to us, right? We just have that plan going into every transaction, and we're lucky that we can run the same play every single time if we wanted to,
Well, that's like having the plan and focusing on the plan will decrease the problems. You'll have less problems. And when there is a problem, hopefully you've done enough, you've gone to enough trainings, you've talked to enough people, you understand, how things work, that you can easily, kind of, weave through what needs to be done and figure out a good plan for that problem so you can move forward. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, hitting your goals, or whatever you're supposed to be doing for the day, whether it be lead generating or whatever it is. If you're focusing on all these problems around you, how are you going to, that's all you're going to be focusing on, not what your plan is and what you need to do, what goals you need to hit, or if you need to lead generate for the hour that day. If you're putting out fires and focusing on all these problems, you're never going to hit your goals and focus on what your plans are. And I think a lot of us fall into that. Even if there's not problems, I think it's just we're so like scattered all over the place in general, that we're not really focusing on the plans that we have in place or the plans that we've used. Like the 135s or the 411s. We've set up a plan and then we never look at it again. Right. Who does that? Don't fib to me. I know. Come on. So, it's great to have all these plans too, but you also have to follow them.
And that's where the habit comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just about creating that habit. And
what was that? We had a Masterminds once. We were talking about habits, Bob. Do you remember what that saying? I think it was, oh God, no, it wasn't Tom Ferry. Who was it? Oh, John Maxwell, I think, about the habits. Like you can have something about good habits or bad habits. It's still a habit. What's that quote?
I don't know.
Anybody remember? Remember we were talking about it for like a whole hour. Oh God. Hold on, I'm gonna Google it. Talk. Who's got something to say?
Yeah, I don't see it.
It's important to think about how you can help alleviate a stressful situation, even if it's not a you problem. I mean, 9 times out of 10 with me, it is a me problem, but sometimes it isn't. And, what can you do just by even asking that question to the party that's posing the issue to you? What can I do to help? Is there anything I can do to help? Think about your client's benefit and what's going to benefit them the most. Getting across the finish line is what's going to benefit them the most, right? They want to sell or they want to buy and they want to do it on time, as stress-less as possible. After 18 years in real estate, if there's one thing I've learned about my clients, it's that. They just want to buy, they want to sell, and they want it to be as stress-less as possible. So, stuff comes up. Sometimes people make mistakes or inspectors don't show up or appointment schedules get a little bit mixed up. I mean, as a perfect example, Wednesday morning, so the day before Thanksgiving, who wants to work that day? Nobody wants to work that day, but I had to anyway. I had to meet the fire department at 9 o'clock in Bridgewater for a smoke certificate. My seller has already moved out of the property. So driving to Bridgewater, I'm about 5 minutes from the property, and I realized, oh crap, I forgot my checkbook. I don't have anything to pay for this smoke certificate. It's about to be issued to me. So what was I going to do? Turn around and drive all the way back to Braintree to find my checkbook where it was locked in my desk? Absolutely not. So take out your trusty phone. I don't know what I did before a smartphone. I mean, I was working in real estate back in the dark ages when we still had MLS books, for God's sake. So I just Googled, hey, where's the nearest South Shore Bank where I do my banking? Well, Google told me it was way back in Weymouth. But as I took my eyes off my phone and was driving down the road, I drove by one in East Bridgewater on Route 18. So I pulled in, went into the bank, said, hey, this is what I need. No problem. Here you go. Here's your money order. All set. Done. So don't panic. I could have panicked. I panic about everything, quite honestly. Well, I am the face of calm in front of all of you and my clients. And then I go home and I fall apart at the end of the day. I can't believe I got through it. That's usually what happens. That's just me being honest.
Awesome. All right, so there's two here that I found, and there was something else that I will find and I'll post it on Facebook. But your daily habits are what either help you to achieve your goals or they will confine you to a mediocre life. True, right?
Yeah, very true.
Very true. I mean, everyone has habits. Good habits or bad habits, they're still habits.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of which ones are going to get you where you need to go, the good habits or the bad habits.
Right.
And there was another one here that says, our habits greatly affect our lives, whether for the good or bad. So we can have great bad habits, right? We have a great bad habit of not lead generating every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great habit, really good at it. But is that going to help?
No.
No.
And I think along with that too, Chris, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot over the last couple of months is something I heard from the core at our last summit was it's about choosing your hard, right? So everything's hard. You know, making calls and prospecting is hard, but not having any closings and not being able to pay your mortgage is hard, right? You have to choose your hard.
Yes.
Working out every single day or working out 3 days a week or something is hard. Being overweight and having, you know, high cholesterol and worrying about having a heart attack at whatever, 40 or 50 is hard. Choose your hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes along with exactly what you were saying, where good habits, bad habits, it doesn't matter. A habit's a habit, right? You just have to choose your hard, choose your habit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
What else?
I think that a great area to talk about too, in the spirit of planning and, you know, solving problems before they even happen, is leveraging your lender when it comes to placing offers and things like that, because you never know. A lot of times you might think, oh yeah, it's December 1st and you want to be in your house before New Year's Eve. Okay, totally. Like, you can have your party there. You'll be able to close in the next 30 days. It might be worth calling the lender that you're working with and just saying, hey, does this sound like a good idea to you? And, you know, we'll be honest, and whomever the lender is should be honest in saying that, you know, I think it will cause a significant amount of stress for you, me, and your client. So in the spirit of, you know, avoiding any problems and delays, why don't we choose a different date that's later? You know,
Huge.
Same thing to be said when it comes to anything in regards to pre-approval. You know, if you have a good relationship with that lender, it's definitely worth giving them a call, really talking through the pre-approval versus, you know, just here's this piece of paper and we're going to run with it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of times where we just like pick dates. Oh, okay, let's close in 20 days. Okay, well, can the lender even do that? Because this is the thing. If you shouldn't go into a transaction saying, well, I can just do an extension. Because guess what? Not all sellers are going to accept an extension. They're not. And you risking your client's money. You know, especially if you're like, well, all right, mortgage commitment, and I'm sure it'll get done, whatever. And like, you kind of blow by it and don't ask for the extension, and now they can't get financed. Now your client's money's gone. I mean, it causes so many problems. So, you know, as far as that's concerned, especially now, I mean, their lenders are busy, right, Bob? Are you busy? Never too busy for your referrals, huh?
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it's honestly, it's an insane time. Going along right with the same conversation, I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, we all will come out of the gate thinking 30-day PNS, 45-day closing, or even straight, 4-week closing, right? But a lot of times I think we just have to ask ourselves why. Does the buyer and the seller, do they really want that so bad to the point where it's going to be one hell of a race to get there, right? Where, it's going to take us 2.5 to it's going to take us at least 3 weeks to get the appraisal back, right? And we're closing in 4 weeks. So it's going to be a rat race from that 3rd week when we get the appraisal to the, to the commitment and the closing and the underwriting and all that stuff. And that also doesn't leave you any time, to absorb some of the impact that you might get from some kind of turbulence coming up, right? Where, I don't know, name your turbulence. I don't even care what it is.
The
right?
appraisal comes in under.
Or there's a mistake on the appraisal and we need the appraisal to correct it, right? Could be anything, but 30-day closings are fine, but really just do that when you need to. I just submitted 2 VA loans yesterday, 30-day closings. Fine, no problem. It's going to be a heck of a race to get there, and that's fine. I mean, whether I'm working on their files or somebody else's, I'm here. It doesn't impact me at all, but they're the ones that are going to be moving their all their things into boxes and into pods and all that stuff. Their lives are going to be turned upside down when in 3 weeks from now or 3.5 weeks from now we get the VA appraisal back. And we're trying to basically underwrite a file in 3 days, fine. I'm okay with it. It doesn't impact me at all. But they're the ones that are putting themselves through that, when a lot of times they don't need to.
Right. And don't we create more of the problems because we don't know or because we're trying to rush or, the appraisal, we can't control the appraisal, right? I haven't heard from them in 3 weeks. So they're going to call, like, what's going on? And they don't care. They'll get there when they get there. They do not care what it says on the purchase and sales that we're closing in 3 days. They don't care. Do they? I mean, I haven't seen any that really care. So, they're going to do it at their time frame, and you're going to cause yourself more anxiety calling. Did you order the appraisal? Where's the appraisal? Appraisal doesn't call me yet, on and on and on, because you're trying to get to this tight closing time. You can't control the underwriters. Right. A lot of these people you can't even talk to. So it's like, with the transaction, even though you're the realtor and you can talk to pretty much everybody, doesn't mean you have control over anybody. Right. So by shortening things up, by not explaining things, by not, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, you're opening yourself up for more problems. Think about this. Okay. Well, we're going to close quick. And now the appraiser's behind and all this stuff's happening. And now we can't close on time now. So now the seller and the buyer both have moving trucks, right? Now, as a realtor, even though you're not moving anything and it really doesn't affect you like financially or physically, it's still going to emotionally be exhausting for you because now like your clients are upset and everybody's just a wreck. And that we have to take the blame for that. If it's something that we could have foreseen and we could have fixed or we could have helped with. If it's something where everybody knows my situation with my COVID thing. I mean, we had everything done. There was nothing that any of us could do when the governor changed the dates. So we didn't close that day. That's not something that none of us could have fixed. I mean, well, that's not true. My seller listened to me, we would have closed like 3 weeks earlier and it wouldn't have happened, but whatever. But there are things that we cannot control, but if it's something that we could have, why put everybody through that? Because at the end of the day, you could have done a really great job through the whole transaction for your client. And then because they had a delay in the moving truck and all this issue, now they're upset. Now it's your fault. Even if it's not your fault, they're going to blame you. I use this example all the time, because I used to be in the hotel restaurant business. If front of the house could do a great job, the food comes out and it's cold or burnt or whatever, they're yelling at the waitress. Do you think she cooked it? No, but they're still getting blamed because that's the one they know. That's the one they see. They don't know who's behind the curtain, So what else you got? Anything that's happened to you that you've had a problem that you've fixed?
Well, one of the things that I try to do with my mentorees is I explain to them that, on your real estate card, you may say real estate professional, real estate expert, real estate this, but the bottom line is you're a project manager and you got to manage the project no matter what. And you don't get paid unless the project is managed properly. So when you manage that project, that means you have to try to anticipate things that could happen. And to your point, Bob, about closing in 30 days, especially the month of December, I'm now experiencing when I'm talking to people, look at, a lot of people take the week between Christmas and New Year's off. And that includes mortgage professionals and underwriters and things of that nature and attorneys. So is it imperative that you must close by the 30th or the 31st for tax purposes or any other monetary gain by doing so? If not, then why not just relax and take your time and do it this way? One of the other things I even coach my clients to do if they're trying to buy and sell at the same time is, you know what, sell your house on Wednesday and don't close till Thursday or Friday. Go to a hotel, have a nice dinner, relax, enjoy the fact that you've got several $100,000 in your bank for a short period of time, and just relax, and you may have a much better experience instead of trying to do both transactions in the same day. That's double jeopardy, in my opinion.
On a Friday, the last day of the month, right? I mean, that's another good example. I try to stay away from that last Friday, last day of the month kind of thing, because this happened with my niece. So we were closing on a Friday. Before Friday, I had talked to the attorney. I said, let's do an extension, like a use and occupancy for the weekend, because even though they're going to closing at 10 a.m., we all know how the registry is. And if we can't get on record on Friday, then my buyers can't move in till Monday. And dealing with the seller, I wasn't really confident that they would say, yes, we'll sign a use and occupancy at 4 or 5 o'clock on a Friday. So let's do it now on Monday so that I'm not running around chasing everybody on Friday at 4:10 because we never made it on record. I mean, that's a huge problem. And it's happened so many times. I mean, if you're closing on a Friday, even if it's at 9 in the morning, I have seen, the registry bounces it. They reject them all the time, sometimes 5 times. And the attorneys are busy. So now your client can't get into their house until Monday. That's a big deal. That's a huge problem that if you had a plan ahead of time or had it be part of your process, like, hey, any Friday closings, maybe put it in the offer. I just thought of this. Maybe I'll do that. Close if you have to close on a Friday or whatever it is, automatic use and occupancy, put in the purchase and sales. I'd have to talk to attorney, see if you can do that, but whatever. Or just have it done separately. You know what I mean? Why not? Head off Problems.
That's managing the project. That's an excellent.
I am changing my business card. Project manager. There's something else that you say. What is it? When somebody asks you, Dennis, what do you do for a living? What do you say? I always thought it was genius.
Oh, I have my own real estate business through Keller Williams.
No, there was something else you said, I thought.
It could be a number of
something
things.
Genius.
There's something genius. Yeah, you had said something else. You'll think of it.
There's so many.
Well, when you remember it, text it to me, because every time you say it, I'm like, I got to write that down and use it. And then I always forget what it was. Yeah, you'll think of it.
I love to use the analogy of an orchestra. I'm the conductor, today's concert day, and all the segments of the orchestra have been practicing their pieces independently. And now we have to all sit on the stage and sound and look good. Because that's essentially what's going on.
Yeah.
It's up to me as the listing agent and even the buyer agent in some cases to just take control, make sure everyone is, doing their job, trusting that they are, not harassing people, and it's all going to come off on closing day. Maybe there are a few high notes, maybe a few low notes. Maybe there's a violin player in the front row and their bow's going in the opposite direction than everybody else. Hey, here's,
As long as it sounds good.
At least it sounds good. Exactly.
Bravo.
I love that.
Bravo.
Love
Bravo. Very good. Bravo.
That's my inner geek speaking.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's easy to understand like that.
Yeah.
Who's talking right now? Who said that?
It's Lisa.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Lisa.
I was like, I hear a woman's voice, but I don't see any mouths going.
I don't know why, but well, I'm walking around, I'm moving around too much. So I have, for some reason, the Showcase Properties pops up.
Well, it says Rick Murray, so that's why I was kind of confused there for a second.
Yeah.
Oh, that's him.
Over there.
Mine says Showcase Properties, and it has, that's what it's saying. I don't know why. Well, I just want to say there's a word I think everyone needs to know. And I listened to this podcast and I thought this is the best word of the year. It's figure outable. So everything is figure outable, no matter what. So if you just take a breather and figure it out instead of freaking out, I think that's like a perfect word. Like, okay, I have a problem. It's figure outable. What's it going to be?
That's awesome.
I think
love
it's
that.
pretty simple. I mean, there was
figure out instead of freak out. I like that.
And don't you find too, I mean, in years of experience, as you accumulate your experience over your career, that setting expectations in the beginning is the most important thing you can do. And especially at a time like this, where, I mean, this is extraordinary. This is just incredibly extraordinary what's going on right now. All the circumstances have built this incredible shitstorm. Forgive the expression, but yeah, total shitstorm of circumstances that are out of our control. So, and we see it every day. We see listing agents and sellers making poor decisions. We see them making great decisions. We see a lot of people over-promising. We see few that are under-promising and over-delivering. Be the under-promiser and the over-deliverer. Just go the distance to make sure that you've done everything you can for your client. And that begins with setting expectations. It really, really does. Not closing for me by the end of the year, that kind of stinks for me because my cap resets on January 1st. So I have 2 closings. Well, one closing that's already scheduled for January, but one that's likely going to be pushed into January. And, it's a big number, and it's going to the sale is a big number, and it's going to cost me probably, $4,500 to push it into January. Oh, well, it's not about me. It's about the clients getting across the finish line on a date that it can actually happen. So that's another way you can be a problem solver. Don't make it about you. Make it about the buyers and sellers, because they're the ones who really have the consequences in every transaction, not us. We just get paid. I think Kristen hopped off on a call. Just momentarily. So.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Miss.
No, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
Well, as far as process goes and planning goes, this time of the year, I think it's important to, we're doing our business plans for 2021, and if you think back on the transactions you had this year, did you have consistent problems continue to pop up, right? And if you can think of a problem that continued to pop up, a pattern, that's what I'm looking for. Sorry, I need more coffee. A pattern that continually kept popping up with problems. I think it's time to set up a plan around that, right? So how can we get out ahead of that, right? If you continually, and this is a good problem to have, if you're a listing agent and you had more houses go under agreement for over asking than you've ever had before, but 3 weeks later, the appraisal kept coming in low and your seller's upset about it, and you're now, sort of defending yourself, or you're on your heels. Hold on, wait a second. You did your job. You got someone out there to say, I will pay you more than this house is worth, okay? From a realtor perspective, if I'm a seller, do I ever want anything more from my realtor than that? Absolutely not. So why do I feel like I have to fall on my sword and say sorry and apologize if a lender's appraisal came in low? I think it's really important now to have a conversation with my clients about, hey, we did sell the house for more than we asked for it, more than you ever thought you'd get for it. It's under agreement. We sold it to this buyer, but we still have to sell it to this buyer's lender. Okay. And so don't count your chickens before they hatch. Whatever that saying is, don't count your eggs before they hatch, or whatever it is. Don't count this money yet. All right. Once we get commitment, once we go to closing and you get all that money, fine, great, wonderful. Then go to Foxwoods and throw it all in black if you want to. But until then,
red.
Red. Okay.
KW
Green.
red.
Green. Actually, really funny story. I know this is a mastermind we're running, but my bachelor party was in Montreal, and it was an epic time. It was great. My brother was running the roulette table in Montreal, and it was like late at night. There's one of those great tables where everybody's laughing, everybody's smoking and joking, all good. My brother put $50 on red, $50 on black, just to be a jerk, and it came up green. They had the double zero there, and so it was like, honestly, one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me.
Oh my gosh.
It's just seeing his face when it came up green, like you're not thinking green, you know, especially around here, but hysterical.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry, Melissa, that was the call for our 12:30 call, so I had to grab it.
Oh, that's okay. No worry. No worry.
Sorry. So I'm not sure what you discussed, but between what I just heard for Bob, I mean, the buyer or seller consultation is so important, right? Because then you can kind of let them know. I mean, even if it's like you, in a nice way, tell them all the doom and gloom things, like these are the things that could happen. Because if you don't, and you just like meet somebody, you know, they call you and you meet them at a house, you write an offer, and you never have this discussion of all these things that happen during the transaction, you're opening up yourself for more problems because they don't understand the process. They don't understand who's involved. And again, it just causes more problems.
Right. Right.
I think a big thing for newer agents, I mean, I can't really say what all the problems are going to be because I've never even closed a sale. Sorry, my dog's barking. But using your resources, like I can literally just go on the Facebook page and message everyone and say, hey, this is what's going on, because you all have so much experience, and 9 times out of 10, one of you have dealt with something that I'm dealing with. So using your resources is like huge for newer agents because you don't know everything that's going to come up, but someone probably has dealt with it.
Absolutely. And that goes back to, you know, having your mentor, you know, as your resource,
Oh, Kristen, you hit mute. Somehow you're on mute.
I just said something brilliant and you didn't hear what I said.
Say it again.
Oh my goodness.
Say brilliant again.
No, Hunter, you're right. I mean, it comes back, you know, you're utilizing your mentor, going on, you know, and going into the office, talking to the agents, coming on these calls, going to the classes, because the more that you learn, the better you're going to be at problem solving. And as you know, every time we have these calls or we have classes, you know, in-person classes, people ask questions. We all like to tell our crazy stories of what happened. And that when you're listening to those and it happens to you, you'll remember, oh yeah, wait a minute, Dennis was talking about that and this is what happened and he did this and that worked. So I'm going to do that, you know, and that's how you're going to learn and be more of a problem solver. If you don't plug in, is what we call it here, and come to the classes and talk to people and be involved, you're kind of like on your own island. And how are you going to really learn anything and be a problem solver? Of course, you're not going to know everything. Now, none of us do. We talk, the people that have been in business all the time, we're always calling each other going, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Really? Whoa. And then we talk about it and try to figure it out. So it's not like everybody has the answers. You're always going to be, I mean, how many times, Bob, do I call you and be like, I just want to double check this to make sure, like, is this right? You know, I feel like it is, but I'm not really sure. You know, sometimes you just want somebody else to like say, yes, it is right. You know, you're not going crazy. So yeah, I think plugging in and being with your mentor and, you know, doing your homework that you're given and, you know, not missing your calls, that kind of stuff's so important. Right, Dennis?
Preach it, sister. Preach it.
Yeah. I mean, Dennis, I know I say this all the time, but it's just so impressive. I mean, Dennis joined and he took Ignite back to back twice. The October one and the January one. And I know because I taught there and he was there and he plugged in. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. You know, when we would break off to do like, okay, do your scripts, you know, script practice with each other or make your calls. Most of the people were talking about, you know, I don't know, the Patriots, and he's doing the work. And look at, I mean, he capped in less than his first year. He joined in October, you capped in June. That's huge. First year in the business because he plugged in, he had a mentor, he went to the classes, and he just did it. He implemented what he learned.
It works if you work it.
Yep.
Right. And, you know, if you think about it also, I mean, we're an office in Braintree of 160 some odd agents. So leverage that. I mean, I tell the people I mentor, you know, when I first started, I mean, I had a ton of questions, and the fact that I had such a large office to tap into the knowledge. I mean, I encourage people, tap people on the shoulder. If you got questions, go to them. And that's how I learned so much, because we had such a strong office, and we still do. Whereas, you know, some of these smaller realtor offices, they get maybe 3 or 4 people. You know, you've got such a huge advantage being at Keller Williams.
Huge.
I agree, Bill. And I feel like at the beginning when I started, and you're my mentor, and I'm so grateful for everything. At first, I was a little bit embarrassed asking some questions. Then I realized how dumb that is. And it's more important to get the right answers than make mistakes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, all of us were new.
Right. At some point.
We didn't all just jump in here and be like, oh, we know how to do everything now. Like, we all started where anyone that's on this call that's new, that hasn't done a transaction, has only done a couple. We've all been there. We all started new and didn't have any transactions. Then we all had just 1, and then we all had just 2.
Yes.
Right, Rick Murray?
Because we were all figure-outable, right, Lisa?
Figure-outable. Yep. Yeah, so we've all been there. It's just, so no question is stupid. And it's important to ask, because if you don't ask and you just assume, then again, that just causes more problems.
Yeah,
Right.
that's where mistakes happen.
This mastermind is about focusing on the plan, not the problem, right?
Yes.
Right.
If you think about all the people who are mentors out there and all the problems that get put, you know, we get asked to solve, like, that's what everyone needs to focus on. Just take a deep breath. I heard Missy say earlier, take a deep breath and figure out what are the options, and you're going to be, you know, implement your figure-outable mind. But seriously, there's nothing you can't Google or ask or figure out, and you should never let the emotions, you know, get the best of you. So I love this topic. I think it's so vital for all of us to just, because we get paid to solve problems. So let's focus on the plan to solve the problem. And the people that do that at a high level get paid the highest.
Yep. I mean, this is like a simple thing, but just to kind of get your minds going here. Okay, so you want to do open houses, but the problem is that you don't have any listings. So what do? You don't just not do open houses. What do? What do?
You shadow an agent who does have open houses.
Yeah. Shadow an agent. Can I come with you?
You make calls. You visit open houses. You do something. You don't sit on your butt, and you don't talk about the Patriots and go on Facebook. You just get out there. You got to be in front of people. I remember during the beginning of this pandemic, I'm practicing COVID protocols here at the Quincy Market Center, by the way. But I remember in the beginning, everybody had to stay home, right? But you still had to be in front of people. In order to make sales, you had to connect with people. So we used Zoom. But we were still going out, and we're just being safe about it. But honestly, I just think that's one thing that pulled me and Lisa through it all, is just we had a lot of relationships. We're cultivating them through Zoom. Sometimes they were in person, but this is a people business. And if you hide behind technology, you won't have any problems to figure out.
Right. Yeah. And, make relationship with agents, look and see who has what listing, and call the agent directly and say, hey, would you like me to do an open house for you? You have to, that's the plan. Like, okay, don't just say, well, I have all these problems because it's on my marketing. It's on my 135 to do open houses to get business, but I can't because I don't have any open houses. Find some. It's a little tougher now just because houses don't even make it to open house sometimes, but you know, there's plenty of people to call, and I'm sure that somebody somewhere will have an opportunity for you to do an open house. Or, you know, hey, do you have buyers that need to look at properties? I want to really like learn how to, you know, build, you know, kind of like go through like showings and open lock boxes and tour properties, you know, I'll do that for you, you know, or can I come with you? Whatever. I mean, put yourself out there, because it's that Raz in the back of your head, right? Everyone knows from Bold. If you think about it, it will come. So you just have to put yourself in your mind in the path of business.
You know? And take ego out of it. Right?
Ego is not your amigo.
Oh, look, dude, this one is just full of, wow.
I like that one.
Wow. You know, if you're asking for help.
Be doing some t-shirts. These are great.
Do you know, I always wanted to do t-shirts. I always want to do that for a living.
Yeah.
Never did.
Let's make some t-shirts.
Yep. Sorry, Bob, go ahead.
No. Hey, you're like, you're creating your own Bold laws now. This is like Bucher laws. I love it. But take ego out of it, because as soon as, you know, if I've seen a lot of people in sales that, you know, come into it and they think that they really have it all figured out, and they crash and burn, right? But the people who are willing to put the work in, number one, be consistent, you know, come from contribution and ask for help, you know, it just, those are the people that are going to get to the next level, you know, and succeed. And much quicker. Like, why recreate the wheel? Like, Hunter, what you were talking about, right? I mean, just the fact that you have a platform like this, and all the other trainings that you go through at Keller Williams too. I mean, why recreate the wheel? You know, when someone like, you know, Missy, I don't think that Rick was on the call earlier, but, you know, Missy gave Rick a great shout out earlier, which is, you know, one of the best tips, one of the best trainings that Rick had ever given Missy. You know, she remembers to this day and implements every day to this day, right? So it's not just, you know, even Missy Garlisi, who's one of the leaders at Keller Williams, you know, was a newbie at one point, right? And someone like Rick Murray helped her. And when Rick got into this industry, I'm sure he could name it right off the bat, the top 1, 2, or 3 people that helped him get into this business immediately. He didn't come out of the womb, you know, with big KW profit share and 10 listings. You know, I mean, he got his first listing one day.
So I'm picturing him coming out saying, "Don't worry, call Rick Murray."
Yeah.
Right.
Very funny. It was Mike Morella, Steve Webster, Dan Laria, a lot of people. I learned from everybody.
Yeah.
And I think I had that mindset of figuring out the problem, you know, figuring out the plan to solve the problem.
Right.
And, you know, I think Frank Morella, the broker owner, told me my first year, he goes, you get paid to solve problems. And I had to chew on that. And he left it like, and that was it. So I had to chew on that for a couple of weeks as like a 23-year-old. And I'm like, well, what problems do we get paid to solve? And, you know, that became clear. The problem of finding a buyer, the problem of finding a seller. So just this topic is so awesome right now. And especially right now, there's so many problems. I mean, my goodness, poor Vasily Axios has got some nightmare deals going on right now, and he's figuring it out. He really is. He's figuring out the problems. And if we can all just focus on figuring out the plan to solve the problem, because there's always going to be problems, thank goodness, and then just don't get emotionally attached to it, we're going to be better off for it. And so will our clients, and we'll get 5-star reviews.
Rick, I love that. Finding buyers is a problem. Finding sellers is a problem, right? Growing your profit share is a problem. We have so many problems. They all need to have some solution. If you want more listings, or you want more buyers, or you want to grow your profit share, what is the plan?
Yeah. So a real life situation, Monday, Vasily has a closing today, and the underwriter at the bank suddenly said, hey, we need a letter from a licensed contractor saying that the deck is okay. Like 24 hours to go. That's a problem, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of freaking out, we developed a plan, and I'm pretty sure he got the solution and he's closing. So problems pop up, man. I actually love when they pop up because I love figuring out a plan to solve them. So, you know, if there's no problems in a deal, brace yourself. There's going to be a big problem.
Now we know what to get Rick for Christmas, puzzles.
Yep. Awesome. Does anybody have any questions or would like to add anything?
I'd like to add one more thing. So
Yes.
even if you're in a troubling transaction, let's just use a co-broke as an example, and the co-broke's not doing their job. And again, as I mentioned before, you know, you're the project manager, but there's a lot of things that you can learn not to do in the future as well. So you can learn from those transactions, from that not so great co-broke, of what not to do. So if that co-broke's not communicating well with you or with others or whatever, and you take the reins and you do what you need to do, just realize that in the next transaction, you don't want to do what that other person did. So I've used that in my career many times. When I sold pottery for a living, the president of the company, when he retired, made a couple of comments and referenced me. And he goes, Dennis, and you learned a lot from me, right? And I said, absolutely, Larry. I learned a lot what not to do in business as well. And because you can learn a lot to do, but you can also learn a lot what not to do. And those things that you learn what not to do can really make you excel in business.
That's huge.
You're very right there, Dennis.
So true.
Dennis, me and Lisa earned a $17,000 commission this year because 10 years ago, the buyer agent of my listing on 66 Longwood Road just disappeared, and I took over. Like you said, I was the project manager, and those buyers who I didn't represent remembered me. I sent them a card, and they called me 10 years later.
Awesome.
I mean, it really pays off. It really pays off when you just rise above it, be the project manager, be the bigger person, the better person, and just follow the golden rule, and good things will happen.
Awesome.
Well, that's a good segment to leave on. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning. I hope you got some good tips there and some aha moments. And
awesome, as always.
Next Tuesday. Although I think I won't be here. I think it'll just be Bob next Tuesday, I believe.
Hopefully with everybody here, and bring friends.
Yes, bring a friend. Awesome. All right, have an awesome week. Go get some listings, and we'll see you soon.
Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.